Sounds like bisexualism. No, I'm just but it's what I was hedging at earlier. That when we talk about mentorship, it's really about. I think the person at your home institution, you need somebody on board who understands the political and the ceremonial aspects of your school. You need somebody there who can champion you enough to say, this is who we are as an institution, because if you really want to survive there, you have to know the language, you have to know the key players, you need to know enough about the history. So you need that one person there. I think the other thing you have to worry about is, what does a mentor mean? A mentor does not necessarily mean a mini-me. And I think oftentimes that's what mentorship has devolved to, and people, if there is a heavy price to pay when you become a mini-me and you violate that, because then the person feels that you've put them out there and then the knife comes out. And so for me, one of the critical things along the pathway for somebody who never had an official mentor but had a number of relationships was integrity. That was the most important thing at the end of the day. That the one thing that I hope I can't be faulted on is I never compromised integrity. So no matter what happens, I can look in that mirror and say I really value who I am and what I've contributed. And I think that really has made a difference, because even the people I'm establishing relationships with, they see that.
Well, and just to sort of hit some of the same points, but maybe think of them in a different way, is the role of passion. And this is a very rough road. If you choose academia, there's certainly some other choice you could probably make that would be better for you as a career. In terms of payoffs, the reinforcers are very few, and they are very minor in magnitude. So you've got to be able to get along with very little for a long time, and that has to come from here. You got to have the heart for this, because otherwise the system will chew you up and spit you out, regardless of your mentor or the quality of that mentor, whatever's going on. I can remember my mentor would tell me, Steve, what are you doing so much out there in the community? Meanwhile, I built 2 clinics, I have a housing facility, and I've got a lot of publications and grants, because in my mind it was important for me to be out there working in the fields. I couldn't, that was just something that was part of me. And it was something I couldn't neglect. Was that good to do from an academic perspective? No. And it cost me. I had to leave, like you were talking about. I had to take a different road. I didn't come through UCLA. My first review was for full professor. So I had none of that coming up. But I wouldn't change it for anything. It really taught me a lot, and be able to pull those lessons from all of the ways that life sets you up to, have these life lessons come along, to be able to do that and to have that passion that's going to get you there.
Dr. Shoptaw, you actually touched on the next question, and that is, when we start to talk about community-based participatory research for junior investigators, many of us encounter barriers, blatant barriers, where not only are our mentors and our departments, but even NIH officials saying, you don't want to do that. And part of the reason that we are discouraged from doing that is it's a more lengthy process. And the guidelines by which we're evaluated in the academic setting is all about grants and manuscripts. And when you're doing community research, those don't come as quickly as in other areas of research. So for those of us who are in the field of HIV/AIDS research, we know that we have to include the community. So what do you say to junior investigators who are dedicated, who this is their passion, that want to do this, but know that they are actually setting themselves up for a very difficult career path, one that many don't survive to make tenure?
Well, that's a very hard question. And I would answer it by saying, if you're doing what you love, you're not going to lose. And so one of the things that I've always felt like is that, the day that somebody else was writing papers because I was out in community, building a clinic or setting up a program or meeting with people, it is a sort of a, they got it early. I'm preparing for later bounties. And so, you sort of set the stage for things that come later. Having that long arc on the view of your activities is really important. I would maintain, and particularly in the field of HIV prevention research, you're irrelevant if you're not out in the field some part of the time. You've got to be there. You just have to be there. We are a temporal society. Things change very quickly. We're a classless society. There's all kinds of isms that are out there we talked about and heard about all day today. And staying on top of that from reading a paper is nowhere near as rich as living it in a relationship with somebody who you're working with and finding that out. So I would say, I would challenge, that would be one thing, is I would challenge my mentee to start to think about things in a different way. And then the second thing I would do is I would, and this is what I'm currently doing, is challenging the system to start to begin to reinforce community time as part of the academic review criteria. Because we can no longer be this irrelevant group of people who are writing fancy papers in good journals when it doesn't translate to our home base. We have to be able to bring this stuff home. And the way we do that from our institutions is to begin to say, look, you give credit to docs or whoever for 15% to go work in their clinics. Why don't you give 15% to the community researchers who are out there actually building programs in our home communities? And we need to be able to say, thank you. We need to be able to get that recognition on the inside. And that's my job. That's my current job. I'm working hard on that. And hopefully we can enlist and do this.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I would add to that is, there are lots of different kinds of research. So even in the context of doing community work, there may be opportunities to write observational epidemiological papers, or there might be opportunities to do focus groups and write qualitative papers. And so, I think ultimately, so that's one thing. So, always try and get a product or two out of whatever the activity it is you're doing. And then I think the other thing is also, if you have these relationships and you're doing work that is going to pay off later, also be relating to people who are doing work that's paying off now, so that you can still build your CV and so that you're not going to have these problems later. Because, I mean, I think it's great what you're trying to do, Steve, in terms of changing it, and certainly it's long overdue. I mean, there's the numbers of battles that need to be fought to make academia relevant are numerous, and we don't have time to catalog them. But I also think the system is what it is, and if you don't give it what it wants, you will simply fail, and we don't want that to happen.
And I think you fail. Yes, you can absolutely fail, but one should also consider the environment in which you're doing the work. There are more institutions out there than there are people in the room, and you must also ask yourself, why do I want it at this institution? And if your answer to that is that this institution is so important for me, then you need to be willing to do what the institution wants. But if you're wanting to get it, there are many places that you can get it, maybe not at that institution.
Thanks for saying that. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the system has got to shift, because these universities are being challenged to bring in this community-based crap, and it's basically rich guys up front who make these decisions about who's going to do the community-based work, and they all go out and they have their machines go into the community and they do their community-based stuff, and the system perpetuates itself. And I personally am committed to system change. So I'm happy to write your letter.
Well, to be respectful of the time, I'm going to let each of the panelists give one closing remark and maybe some words of wisdom to junior investigators as we enter this little scary process of trying to make tenure. Words of wisdom coming your way.
Good luck. Pick a different field. Clearly, there are people who do it, and so I would say perseverance, but integrity.
I would say ask for help. I think that there are a lot of, myself included, a lot of people who have made it through the process at some level and enjoyed some level of success. And you know what? Make use of us. Call us up. I'm certainly happy, and I know many others are, to do whatever we can to facilitate your success.
Thank you. Thank you for staying, for contributing, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.